It's recording.
Cool. Shall we go walking?
Sure. From our respective directions. It's a face-off.
It does feel kind of like a face-off. I promise I didn't design it to be like this.
What did you design it to be like?
I wanted most of my back rooms to be behind me so that the impression is that this is my house and you're very kindly visiting it.
Okay.
And then the windows behind are like kind of your background, so there's sort of a dichotomy there.
Okay.
And then I have the blue and you have the pink behind you.
I have pink.
You have the pink like rug.
There it is. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So could you introduce yourself?
Okay. Sure. My name is Maya Koch, and I'm your sister. And I like rock climbing.
How much younger are you than I am?
Well, it depends on the time of year, is what I like to say. But typically between 2 and 3 years, I am younger. So I'm about to turn 25 this May in a couple months.
Okay. Well, I wanted to start by saying a couple things. And I actually also wanted to start by praying. if that's
Okay.
with you.
All right.
So I'm going to do the prayer for Torah study
Okay.
because I believe that all of our human lives are Torah and that studying and reflecting on our own lives is a part of Torah study. So the prayer goes, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And it's just a moment before learning something new to be grateful for different perspectives and a reminder. I always think of it as a reminder to myself to like be courageous and to be honest, and when I'm not understanding something to be honest that I don't understand and just keep asking questions. So that's like my bracha for this interview, that we can better understand each other and that we can do it in a way where we can be honest and keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any hopes or goals? You're very kindly coming and participating in this, and I don't know what your perspective is.
I'm, of course, open to growth and to learning and being open and curious. And I think there's differences that we have, but they're not, mountains away. I think that they're closer than we think. And it's ironic that we have such differences, like, with each other in terms of what we're doing, because ultimately we are the closest humans that we can be to each other, right? Like, if I need your liver one day, you gotta make that happen for me. So
Wait, can I even donate a liver? How does that work?
I think that you can. I'd have to look into it, but
Or
yeah.
a kidney, or
One of your non-essential organs. Yeah. Actually, we don't even know if we have the same blood type, but that's besides the point. We're here as a family. So, and I definitely appreciate the ceremonial representation of coming into a conversation to be open and to be willing to grow and learn. So, yeah.
So, starting with mountains, I asked you to think about what a mountain is that you feel personally connected to. And I can start with the context as well, that we're both Coloradans. We grew up looking at the mountains all the time, playing in parks with good views of the mountains, going on hikes in the summer and ski trips in the winters. Like, we were both very lucky to just have that be a very natural part of our upbringing.
Yeah.
But what's a particular area of the mountains that you have a personal connection with, and how did that happen?
Yeah. My favorite mountain is not really a mountain, it's more of a mesa, and that's North Table Mesa, which is where I live now in Golden. The mesa has sort of a crown element to it. You kind of can walk up this intensive approach of very steep grade, and there's this sort of golden crown of rock climbing that you can do around the side of it. Today, during work hours, I also walked up the other side, and it was a kind of snowy cardio event, but it was cool to just see the new perspective. So yeah, North Table is kind of a gateway to rock climbing for me. It was the closest place that you could go from Denver reasonably, and it's the best in the winter because there's sun that hits the rock climbing walls all day, and it melts all the snow off, so you can rock climb there in the winter pretty consistently. And that was really important to me to kind of get into this rock climbing all year round mindset, and I was able to rock climb, like, I think at every month of the year for the first year that I rock climbed. So yeah, but it's sunny and warm and really nice.
Did you start rock climbing in Denver?
So I started, my very first rock climbing experience was with Girl Scout summer camp.
What kinds of memories do you have from Girl Scout camp? Like, first of all, what age range were you?
It was middle school. I remember all the counselors use like fake names, so that was pretty exciting.
Really?
Like, yeah, like you know, you're talking to like Butter Cookies or whatever, and like they just had like weird names. There were horses involved to some degree. I don't know if we like rid them consistently, but there were horses and lots of you know, interesting experiences with like just being around a lot of girls, which was fun. Like, one time we got in trouble for like leaving the bathroom super messy. There was like, we had made face masks with avocados, and there were just avocados everywhere on the bathroom counter. And so then I was selected in the group to clean up the bathroom. So, you know, memories like that. Also, we had a thunder lightning experience, and so after Girl Scout camp I was very afraid of lightning for a while.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like I'd be in the car and it was like too much to deal with.
Yeah.
But we were hiking, and kind of a storm came through, and we had to like duck and cover and like run down the mountain, so you know.
I think it's worth elaborating these stories about summer camp and kind of childhood summers, because one of the big things I was thinking about the mountain between us, or the mountain image, is, you know, my favorite mountain is the mountain that I went to summer camp on. Schwader Camp. It was like a very, I think, well-run camp, run by the temple that we live pretty close to now. And they had a lot of like Jewish spiritual education.
Yeah.
They had, they built like a lot of mythology around the camp. It was, they would do these things, and I don't know if you experienced this at your camps too, but they would do a lot of things of like, we're gonna like all hold hands right now and like look up at the sky and like appreciate nature. They had this thing of, when you look up to the mountain and you see where the green of the evergreen trees meets the blue of the Colorado sky, like that's the image of Schwader Camp. And anytime that you look up at those colors, you'll be reminded of like your home away from home. There's a very like intentional type of like kind of mythological programming that they were doing.
Yeah.
And it related to Judaism. There's actually a teaching in the Mishnah about recognizing the difference between the colors green and blue.
Oh, okay.
And how your ability to distinguish between colors is a way to check in with yourself spiritually and to notice what time of day it is and to be ready to pray. And so, like, they were, I think it was pretty deep. Like, they were really reinforcing certain concepts to me, like, through us being on this mountain. And I remember the first time that we hiked a very long and difficult hike up to the summit. There was like a beautiful lake up there. It's the Chicago Lakes. And it's like wind, like howling. That's why they call it the Chicago Lakes, because there's always wind like howling down the valley. And my endorphins were going, and I think I was just in a kind of spiritual mood, and I was like, that does it. There is definitely a God. A God is here, and a God created all of this. The way that I feel, there's no other explanation for what I see right now. How could any of this exist, if some person wasn't making it so that I could appreciate it and find it beautiful? And that was like, that's always stuck with me, And as I was reflecting on that, I was thinking about like, why didn't Maya also go to the same summer camp I went to? Like,
yeah.
What do you make of that?
I went to a different Jewish camp. So I went to JCC Ranch Camp. And that one, I think, was geared more towards having a blend of Girl Scout vibes to it. But that was my most intense Jewish education out of anything I had. In my childhood was there. I remember learning the prayers for the meals, and like after a few summers, like you're locked in. You have everything you need to go forward, and doing all the Shabbat stuff. You'd have to ask mom and dad, because they probably had a reason, and that reason was probably wanting us to have unique experiences and not be swayed by the other sibling being there. Like when we went to Hogwarts camp, I had the experience of being sorted into the same house as you because of the reason that we were siblings. So there's probably some sort of intentional thing.
Do you remember that being a problem, that we were in the same house? Like,
it was Slytherin. It wasn't a problem, but I definitely lost a sense of individuality about being chosen to be. It was more of like a family affair.
Yes.
And then,
what if it was random though?
I think they told the walkie-talkie in the Sorting Hat did confirm like the family connection to it. But that brings up a whole other point of like, who really deserves to be in Slytherin anyways. But yeah, I embraced it. Green looks good on me, so it works.
This is why I'm glad we're talking, because that's the kind of memory I would never recall. Like, I barely remember that you went to Hogwarts camp with me.
Yeah.
I don't really remember being in Slytherin. I don't remember that us being in the same house and that being like problematic. I feel like that getting older and putting our parents more in perspective, I kind of feel like it was a bit odd to send your two kids to two different Jewish summer camps. I feel like my experience at summer camp was that lots of siblings were there together and that they were a little mini support system for each other.
Yeah.
And when you're going through a hard day, you can like go talk to your big brother or your little sister, and like that was a extra piece of value added to the experience, that like we formed a new family up in the mountains, but then also like we like have each other still, and we can have the same network of friends.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It always felt like we would go our very separate ways in the summer, and it set the tone in a way for the rest of the school year as well, because I didn't know any of your friends or their siblings, or like there was just no contact.
Yeah. It must have been a logistical thing where they wanted one kid to be there at a certain time and another to be there. Like, I don't know if we had gone to the same session, like if they wanted an empty house or something. Maybe it was easier to handle us separately when we were home for the rest of the summer. Like, you know, they had like a couple weeks of just having the one kid to deal with or something. So I don't know if it was intentional at all to separate us from like a family perspective, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I do know for both of them, it's not really a secret that they didn't have awesome relationships with their siblings growing up. And on the theme of like protection, I have wondered if they were doing this consciously or not to try to prevent us from beating up on each other or being too like that if we were in too close a proximity, too many like fights would happen and then we would, you know, basically recreate the dynamics that both of them were trying to kind of get away from in their own childhoods.
It could be. I think that there is definitely something to be said about when you don't have parents, that you kind of put aside the fighting to come together. Like the time that you drove us to high school and it was kind of a snowy, icy day, and we like almost got in a car accident, like turning, and you were driving and you just look over and you're like, don't tell mom and dad. So there's definitely a bond of when you know you are not being watched, or that you have, you know, those parents looking at you, that there's more incentive to come together.
Yeah.
Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef v'tzitzit Kishem shem Bach v'shem Uvarei adam
I'm thinking of gear in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Both Judaism and rock climbing demand a lot of time. I think time is a type of gear. My most important gear that I feel I have as a Jew is, I guess, well, it's two things. It's my tallis. I was always jealous of Jewish kids who like got to like have their bar mitzvah and like their grandfather's tallis, and like so when Hannah and I got married, I really made a point of like, I want heirlooms, I want Jewish things that I'm going to hold on to and pass down, and you know, make that be a part of my legacy, is like that these objects like connect to the life cycle events and things like that. And then at a certain point, about a year ago, I started like wearing some kind of headwear all the time. And I usually just wear like a baseball cap these days, but that's my like other important gear that I kind of have as a Jewish person that connects to like different spiritual concepts. But I wondered what other gear is important to you as a climber.
Well, I think your question that you asked me was like, what was the one piece of gear that's like most important to have or to invest in? And my answer is the shoes. You can't really do much without the shoes. Like you can for sure do climbing without climbing shoes, but if you want to do it well, you need a good pair of shoes that fit your foot the right way, that you can do the things you want to do, like heel hooking, or it's like a toe, kind of like pulling with the top of your toes to toe hook is what it's called. And then having a good edge on the front and the side of your shoes around your toes helps you toe in to the hold, so you can step like and just like the perfect most little edge onto your hold, so you can progressively get more aggressive shoes as time goes on that will make your feet pretty weird, but also my feet can get a little weird. It's just because you're like wearing a shoe that's a little too small for you, and it's crushing all of your toes together, but it's good for performance. So
wait, that's so interesting. So in a way, your literal feet also change to be part of your gear.
Yeah.
Like
well, they have to be strong. They have to like grip things. So the muscles in your feet are working for sure. And attached to your foot would be your ankle, which, as you know, I had an ankle injury from climbing as well. So your whole body is, but I think your feet and your hands are really the key things. They're your attachment points for the most part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your response to me indicates a more expert climber's attitude.
Yes.
I would think that like a novice climber or someone who just knows nothing about climbing would say obviously the rope. Mm-hmm. Why do you think as you get more expertise in climbing, the rope matters less, or it's like not the gear that you think is most important?
Well, technically I boulder, so I don't need a rope all the time. But that's an interesting question. I would say you need the shoes more as you go on because the rope is going to stay the same. There's not as many features and bells and whistles that a different rope is going to provide you, but a better pair of shoes will change what you can do. Like if you're climbing a certain level, that next pair of shoes is going to train your foot to be able to do new things. Like for example, my old pair of shoes, I wasn't able to toe hook because there wasn't enough rubber on the edge of the front of the shoe, and so it kind of hurts to have the toe be going in to a hold and pulling on it. But now I have a new shoe that can do that. And so like you just unlock a whole new movement in climbing versus the rope is always going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this the kind of thing that climbers like to talk about and get
yeah.
into? Like,
Yeah.
this is a lot of climber.
Yeah, it's like the one
Discourse.
piece of engineering. Unless you're doing trad climbing where there's literal engineering into how to get yourself up there. But the shoes are absolutely important. Climbers love talking about climbing is one thing about climbers. So, yeah.
And Jews love talking about Judaism.
It's one thing we have in common.
Yeah, I mean, that was another thing in my mind for sure is the conversational or the intellectual side of the hobby.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know that climbers look at climbing as like kind of one of the more like sophisticated ways to work out, and that you're really needing to do a lot of thinking and strategizing while you're also like doing this physical thing. What do you think is like the biggest intellectual change you've had in your mindset as a climber? And like, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, the next most important piece of gear in climbing is your mind, what you think you can do, your confidence, your fear, and how to turn off some parts of your brain, and how to turn on other parts of your brain. So I would say that I've most invested and improved in confidence. There's like a really, really big difference I can see in myself from a couple years ago to now. I feel like I'm good at something. I'm good at this sport, and it is a puzzle. Like, it is a very intellectual sort of sport. You have to do a lot of things. It's very coordinated. Although I look at soccer players, football players, and I think like they're so much better athletes overall because they can jump and run and the cardio element to it. So I don't think that climbers should be sort of superior and think that they're doing the most intellectual sport, but it is definitely one of the harder things to do in terms of coordinated sports. It's very full body, and you have to be fearless.
Yeah. In like a very primal way.
Yeah, and then sometimes you get injured and you have to figure out how to come back from that new fear that you created for yourself. Yeah.
My mind was going a couple of different directions with that. I guess backing up a little bit, I wanted to ask about your comment about finally feeling like you're good at something. I wanted to reflect that when you went away for college, I felt quite disconnected from you. Like, I don't know if we talked very much, like, when you were a freshman.
No.
And I think part of that was that maybe it wasn't going very well for you. I don't know if you felt like it was not going well from the start, like from day one, or what your experience of that was, but I always felt that I know things aren't going great for Maya because I'm not hearing from her, and like my parents aren't even hearing from her, you know, and that those two things might have been kind of related, that you were more withdrawn because you didn't feel like you were doing anything right. And I guess I just want to say that to reflect that you're so 1,000% right, that you have changed so much after coming back to Denver and building this career that you have now and these interests, and rock climbing being like such a massive part of you. Yeah, just developing this kind of sense of poise and character and a kind of confidence when you like walk into the room. Like, I know who I am and I know what I'm good at, and whether I'm having a bad day at my job or whatever else, or like relationship things or whatever's going on, like, yeah, I really do feel you so much more anchored, and like, I know that I'm good at something.
And I think that was bound to happen based on my age too. There's a part of coming to grips with reality after college that happens to those who go to college. But yes, I think rock climbing was a big part of creating a more individual and empowered person within me. And beyond the mental changes, there are like physical changes too. Like I show Dad all the time, like, look how big my bicep has gotten. And he's like, yeah, Maya. And I'm like, yeah. So there's some really positive physical changes as well that I've just valued a lot, as like from a functional point of view. Like, I can do pull-ups now, and like I think I always was interested in those things, but now it's like just a lot more fun and cool that I can accomplish those things.
That's awesome. It's helping me appreciate the sport overall a lot more. I mean, I have to imagine like a lot of people feel like that you know, you're an adult, maybe you just moved to Denver. Probably you just moved to Denver. That's what everyone's doing right now. You're a little bit isolated.
Yeah.
You're not sure what you're doing with your life, but you know you can do rock climbing. Either you did it in another city and now you do it here, or you're just trying something new and you know people like it, and it's like helping you find yourself in a way. Like you're challenging yourself in important ways and things like that.
And like religion, it provides a community of people with like-minded interests. Meeting other people is like hard when you're new to Denver, for sure. So it's just kind of a guaranteed casual way to introduce yourself to others. Yeah.
Do you have any like questions or like things that you harbor about my relationship with Judaism? Like, just anything that I've said that you have a lingering question about, or like, you know, I feel like you can often be very tolerant and respectful of like me having chosen like a very different faith system than
Well, I mean, it doesn't change who you are. You're still gonna be like the person who you are, and it's just amplified, like, you know, to have a good value system and like everything like that. So I don't really have qualms with it. I think that it's important to remember why you're in community, like especially with being a UU, there were a lot of times I questioned, what is this community like? Are we making good choices, and who are these people? Would I want to be with them outside of this special environment of a camp or a conference? So yeah, but I'm not like concerned about it at all. I don't have like questions. I think it's interesting that it's something that you have pursued and are pursuing, and I think that everyone has different sorts of callings in their lives. So if your calling is to be a rabbi, like, that's cool. And you know, I don't have qualms with it at all. So
I think my main calling outside being a rabbi, which is like a whole other can of worms, like I think I feel called to raise a really unified family that like all identifies as Jewish and feels like this is like a really huge dimension of who I am and who my family is.
Now that you said that, now I do have a question / qualm. Like, you know, I think a big feature of being Unitarian, it was about giving the freedom of a child making their own choice with religion. And that choice is very important. In my experience of talking with other people who I meet in the world about religion, they say, I was forced into XYZ and I resent it. And so I think it's important, like, to have strong culture, but I don't think that you should tell this family member I have not met yet that it is a requirement, because you don't want to create that kind of pressure. But that's just me.
Shalom Aleinu, Be'al Kol Yisrael, Be'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Be'imru, Amen.
Well, the last section is about what it is that we're climbing towards when we started climbing and what we think the story is. And of course, we'll both have the opportunity to like correct the record. Because I think we'll both be wrong, but in interesting ways.
Okay, yeah.
So we were talking about Judaism a lot there. I can always switch back to climbing, or whatever you want to do.
Well, that's okay. I have my answer prepared.
Okay.
So I think that at a similar time to when I was kind of finding rock climbing, you were finding your own sense of identity within Judaism and kind of re-exploring what you knew from as a kid, but kind of amplifying into. And I think that what has furthest propelled you into this is the intellectual side of learning a language. I don't know if that's correct, but I think that you are a very intellectual and smart person, and you are curious about these things, and it's like sort of a hobby to learn about this from an intellectual point of view. And I think that through that you've kind of discovered all of the other auxiliary pieces of connection, community, family, and like belief. So yeah.
And what do you think I'm climbing towards? What's at the top of my wall?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I don't really know what the goal of religion is. Like, most religions are about spreading religion, and because they want, I don't know, world domination, or like the most support, or there's some sort of afterlife that you're working towards and you need to do XYZ to get there. And I think Judaism is a little different from that. I don't think it's as much like spreading and preaching and everything. But I think it's enabling you to see the world in different ways and have structure in a time of our world outside of that is quite unstructured. And we do have a lot of freedom. We do have a lot of choices as, people who are in our circumstances. And so it gives you a lot of power in a world that seems powerless. Mm-hmm.
I like so many things that you just said, saying that it's a intellectual opportunity and a challenge to like be able to learn new languages, speak new languages. I feel like when you can speak a new language, you can also sort of communicate with different people. Mm-hmm. And I know this sounds like very different from like a lot of the things we have in common from growing up, but like I really genuinely feel that learning Hebrew has taught me how to speak to God. Mm-hmm. And that Hebrew was, and you can take this metaphorically or whatever, but that Hebrew really was designed and has been protected as like a very special way to communicate with God. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's really special. I mean, I think the story that I would tell about my like journey into Judaism, I think, has a lot more to do with our family. The way I would tell it, I think a lot of it started from Hannah and I talking about getting married and beginning to imagine if we're gonna like build a whole family together, like what needs to be at the center of it. And Hannah and I both sort of recognized like we're both really severe people who think very deeply and communicate in serious ways, and that we had never really talked about religion. We had never figured out how to share that in common. And we went through many phases of conversation about what that would look like. But, you know, when Hannah basically started expressing interest in converting to Judaism one way or another, it was kind of a serious push for me to also begin to take Judaism more seriously and to, rather than just letting it be like a fact about my childhood, turning it into something that I really feel ownership over and that I feel that I can like teach the future generations about as well, and growing a spirit in my family that has to do with, yeah, just like connection and community and a sense of shared obligation. Like, what are the things that we know? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's a God or not. It doesn't matter, you know, at what level of observance you are. It doesn't matter, but like, what obligations do we have to each other? And what are we willing to do to keep these connections, you know? And I feel like our family, I feel like that's a weak point for me. That I didn't learn when I was younger how to follow obligations to my family and to make choices thinking about my family in like a more significant way. So I think that's kind of the path I'm on.
Okay.
Like, trying to find communities and spaces where everyone really feels a shared sense of obligation and that it passes between the generations. That, you know, I now teach these kids who are in middle school and have just as many gripes about Judaism and are super lost and funny and confused and all the things. Like, and it makes me feel good to know that I'm like contributing to a tradition that they can make their own someday and pass on as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's so many ways you can do that. And I'm glad that you found something that you can feel really connected to. And especially that pulls into things from your childhood. I know that for me, my experience with dance, movement, and rhythm are all things that I pull into my adult life. And that's all that matters. Like, I think that something that I would ask Dad a lot, and like I liked going to Dad for these sorts of questions, is like, you know, what is the meaning of having a life or having a partner? And often the answer was, you know, there's not really a good reason, and that's sort of that like, well, you get to choose your own reason. But he does circle back to that there's a underlying feature of humanity of creating connections is special and important, and you need to pursue others, and that is kind of where the meaning lies in your connections to others. So
it's a very Kabbalistic concept. Tikkun olam, repairing the world through love and through connecting with others and finding the ways to connect to your own unique person, or your own unique like purpose as like a like holy person on earth.
yeah.
My story of you, and I think it's changed like just as we've talked, in rock climbing. I thought that if, you know, we were going to make the dramatic movie of like Maya the rock climber,
Yeah.
I think there would definitely have to be the scene of you climbing out your bedroom window.
We could recreate it.
It just, to me, I feel like my perception of that, and I like, again, am very grateful for you bringing these memories back, because I like don't remember a lot of these things. My perception is that you, as a high schooler, were kind of looking for ways to like take risks and sort of like prove yourself and sort of be your own person. Because I don't think that you were trying to like escape your room to go anywhere
no.
or to like do anything
No.
with anybody. Like, no offense, but I think all your friends were probably asleep by like 9 p.m.
Yeah.
I think you literally just like wanted the thrill.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I was sort of the only person who you could show that to.
I definitely didn't do it for a purpose other than finding out if I could. Yeah. I wanted to specifically know if I could climb back up into the room, which the answer was no. I had to sneak back into the house, and it was a whole... I knew the whole kind of security system of the house. You know, the garage is going to make a noise. It's right under their parents' bedroom. And this was like, well, if I get in trouble, at least it's about me coming back to the house. You know, it's not like I went anywhere. I just want to, you know, get back. So I opened the garage and I ran to stop the garage, because the longer the garage is going, the more likely, you know, they're going to hear it. So then I waited for like 3 minutes so that in case they woke up briefly from that one noise, you know, it'd be okay. So I close it again. And then at that point I realized that the door is locked, and I had to remember we had a spare key in the garage. So I had to like reach around and find that. I'm like kind of short, so I had to like climb up a little bit to find it. And I realized also that that door is going to also make a beeping sound when it opens. So I open it, and I just kind of like stand still so that nobody would hear me walking after opening the door. So I had a little bit of intention of like, I have to do things slowly and methodically. And then the next morning I had to sneak the key back to its location as well. So...
And what were the circumstances of me finding out about this? Did you just confess to me that you had done this, or I found something and asked a question? Like,
yeah. Well, so our parents weren't there earlier in the day, and I found this rope that I wanted to use for this task. And the key thing to my escape plan involved getting back in, so I was tying knots in the middle of the rope to use as like I could hold on above the knot and it would catch me, so I could like get up there and like kind of scale the wall back up. So I had the door open and I was tying knots into the middle of the rope. The dresser was like askew, the window was open, and I had the rope like tied around the dresser, like ready to go. And one of the knots that we use for climbing as well today is like the Prusik hitch, so it kind of like self ties.
oh,
But yeah, I think I just kind of neglected to close the door. It wasn't like I was inviting you to see, but when it happened, I'm pretty sure I just like looked at you and was like, and then we both just laughed and like you went on your way thinking nothing of it.
I guess this is part of my story of you climbing, is that you do want to keep getting better, and that you are very ambitious about not just doing it for fun, but really pushing yourself to be the best climber that you can be. And my sense is that you've been working very hard on that, not just through literally climbing, but like going to the gym and like being very like it seems like all of your closest friends are climbers, and you all like support each other so much, and like there is a lot of ambition in what you're doing, and that it's a venue for you to kind of push yourself and keep testing the limits of what you're capable of. What would you correct about my story?
I mean,
what's your reflection?
Yeah, I think that's kind of sums it. Like, it's just something that I found out that I really liked, and I've been pursuing every waking moment to further my abilities to do the things that I want to do within it. And it's a challenge, it's a journey. It's not all climbing up. It's a lot of failing and a lot of being wrong and a lot of recovery, and the other kind of like weightlifting things sometimes take away from the climbing. Like, you know, it's not all one and done. There's a lot of really strong climbers who started when they were 3 or whatever, and for real though, like, you know, you have an opportunity ahead of yourself with this baby. If you want to get that, I'm really into rock climbing, like, now's the time. I'm just kind of taking it as like, I joined when I joined, and I'm excited to keep trying, and it's definitely a gateway to further adventures in Colorado and adulthood. There's a lot of places to go to rock climb, in mountains, at alpine levels, in the desert, different methods of doing things. So it's just a really big open door for me that I'm kind of like just walking through.
I think my Jewish spirituality side of what just happened is like, I think this is what illustrates my point about Torah, that, you know, our stories are like part of the stories of the Jewish people. They're just part of the stories of humanity more broadly, and that the conversation we just had didn't reach any finite conclusions. I think it just opened the door to talk more and to learn more about each other, which is like, what more can you want out of life than the motivation to learn more and to be more perceptive and more curious about like other people and like other perspectives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We share that trait regardless of religion.
we do.
Yeah. Shout out the parents. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain. She'll be coming round the mountain. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She will scatter frost like ashes when she comes. She will scatter frost like ashes when she comes. She will scatter frost like ashes. She will scatter frost like ashes. She will scatter frost like ashes when she comes. She will hover just between us when we talk. She will hover just between us when we talk. She will hover just between us. She will hover just between us. She will hover just between us when we talk. Shechina sheruya benehem. Shechina sheruya benehem. Shechina sheruya benehem. Divrei Torah. Shechina sheruya benehem. Kol sason v'kol simcha. Kol sason v'kol simcha. Kol sason v'kol simcha. V'kol tol Yerushalayim. Kol sason v'kol simcha. Hallelujah, v'tziltzilei shama. Hallelujah, v'tziltzilei trua. Kol hashemata hallelujah. Kol hashemata hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah.